BBC have been very naughty. You'd think a broadcaster funded by millions of unwilling wallets might at least keep its footage in the right order. But here we are, a national institution behaving like a teenager rushing to finish homework on the bus. And what makes this funnier? When I was in college, still figuring out facial hair and girls, we made a little video project where we interviewed teachers, asked completely random questions, and then stitched their answers together out of context. A textiles teacher saying the industry she worked in was very cutthroat and dry was suddenly describing the draconian style maths teacher. Was it misleading? Absolutely. Illegal? Possibly. But satire? 100%. But we were 16-year-olds exploring Adobe Premiere, not a tax-funded broadcaster with a global reach. We were messing about for coursework and grades. They're messing about while still calling it journalism. And honestly, if I kept sharpening that skill of rearranging reality, I might have landed a job at the BBC, towing the line like Winston Smith with a corporate email signature. But let's talk about the present. Because the BBC, the supposed lighthouse of British truth, now stands accused of altering political footage, and their explanation, an editorial error, which is rather adorable. That's like calling the Great Fire of London a minor heating mishap, because this wasn't just a typo, or an audio slip, or even a caption error. This was reality dressed up for the cameras. Back in September 2019, the BBC greenlit and released a show called The Capture, a mystery drama about doctored video evidence. At the time it was positioned as fiction, a dystopian thought experiment of the advancement of technology and the risk it posed to freedom. Fast forward to now, and the broadcasters that dramatise manipulated footage is accused of doing it in the real world. You generally couldn't script the irony this good. And if you zoom out, the whole thing is a highlight of a deeper British absurdity. We live in a country where you can't legally carry pepper spray, where the streets feel less and less stable each year, and yet you're legally expected to fund a broadcaster that doesn't always seem to be particularly fond of you. It's like paying someone to take your lunch money, while they narrate the whole thing. The BBC insists it's woven into British identity, and to be fair, it probably once was. For generations, children were raised on BBC Bite Size, lectured on impartiality, taught that the crest, the logo, the theme music stood for truth, delivered iconic dramas and narrated national moments. But like everything in modernity, something shifted. The tone grew strangely parental, reporting became curation, and some dramas felt like more imaginative reinterpretations than any accurate retelling of history. And through it all, the licence fee letters kept arriving with the energy of a medieval tax collector. And this is when you try hard to not look back at some of the scandals, the questionable affiliations and judgments, and a few, let's call them, unfortunate artistic choices in decor that people are just waking up now and smelling the coffee. But now the executive in charge has stepped aside, quietly, elegantly, the sort of gentle exit used when institutions want to say, problem solved, without actually solving anything. Anyone who understands power knows that one resignation does not change culture. Institutions drift over time, through habits, assumptions and unspoken direction, which is why this moment matters. As if Le Rock can simply resign, as if an empire of influence runs on the whims of a single boss, rather than a system, a culture, a direction, an ideology that's baked in it for years. Believing otherwise is like believing every scandal in Rome was Caesar's idea alone. Institutions don't malfunction because one person sneezed. They malfunction because the foundations were cracking long before we heard them. Because when a public broadcaster is accused of manipulating political footage, and the explanation is essentially, whoops, wrong button, it's not a technical issue, it's symbolic and ideological. Especially in a world where AI can generate faces, voices, emotions that never existed, where deepfakes can confess to crimes and synthetic reality is accessible to anyone with a laptop or smartphone. In that world, the last thing a public broadcaster should do, particularly when they state that their whole ethos is trust, is add to the confusion. Because trust is fragile, and once it cracks, it rarely returns as it was. And that's the story here. Not just the clip, the outcome of the lawsuit, or the error, but the reflection it casts on the relationship between the public and the institutions that shape national narrative. If people who present true start bending it, even by a whoopsie, then the public is left to navigate the noise alone. Maybe that's why more people are turning to alternative voices, independent thinkers, and yes, even goats in the wilderness. Because the wilderness might be rough, but at least it doesn't doctor the footage.